Thank you all so much for coming. I am so excited that you're here. And as Todd was saying, my name is David Anderson. I am the pastor here. But I sort of wear two hats. I pastor this church throughout the week and preach on Sundays and all of that. But I also sort of, not if it's a different life, but I do a lot of weddings. In fact, I've done over 1,200 weddings, which means that I have spent time with 1,200 couples, 2,400 people. Each couple usually I spend about 4 hours with, so just sort of do that math in your head. I spend a lot of time talking about this stuff, talking about the idea of date night, the idea of romance and all that. And so I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the things that I usually do with engaged couples. And I guess I want to first ask, how many of you are married? Raise your hand if you're married. Okay. All right. Raise your hand if you're not married. Wow. Okay. So I'll have business cards for you afterwards. So, how many of you have been married for more than 20 years? 20 years. You've been married for 20 years. Okay. How many of you have been married for over 30 years? 30 years. How many 40 years? 40 years. Anybody 50? 50? How many years? You lost count. She just threw up her hands like this. She's like, I don't know, whatever. Since as far as I can remember. Very good. So 51 years. Congratulations. That is beautiful. Beautiful. And so again, I guess one of the things that I love about weddings and the whole engagement season is that it is sort of the happiest day. I mean, to be able to spend that kind of time with people. Every time I show up at a wedding, it's their best day. It is their most favorite thing to celebrate, unless it goes weird. How many of you have ever been to a very weird wedding? Don't have to say who it was, and if it was yours, don't say that. Okay. Most of the time, I've done good weddings. I've enjoyed that. I've done some weddings for stars. I did a wedding one time for an NBA player. His name was Roy Rogers. You didn't know who that was because he played during the time of Michael Jordan, so he was on the Celtics and no one cared. But I remember he said, well, I'm going to bring some of my friends to my wedding. And I couldn't believe it when he showed up. He had three NBA players. He had Chauncey Billups, Antonio McDyess, and Robert Horry all showed up at this guy's wedding. Now, if you were a guy and you know those names, you know how amazing that was. You also have to realize how short I was on the stage. Roy Rogers was 7 foot, and he found a wonderful bride who was 5'4", and they were both just right here on stage. But I remember one of my first wedding experiences, there was a fight. Okay? And it was a fight between the bride and the maid of honor. Okay? Now, this wedding, it took place in the state of North Carolina. Not that means anything, but unless it means something to you, you can sort of infer from there. It was the state of South Carolina. And the bride was getting married, and her sister was the maid of honor. And what the couple had arranged, they said, hey, we're going to have the couples come down the aisle together, and when they get to the front, they're going to split off. But we're going to have the maid of honor walk in by herself, and that the groomsman, the best man, would actually walk in with the groom. And the maid of honor, who was the sister, she did not like this idea. And no matter what we could do to explain this to her, we could not get past it. Now, we all sort of figured out she liked the best man. And she figured this was her moment. This was going to put the both of them together universally. This was when all the stars were going to align. But everyone kept saying, hey, no, you're the maid of honor. You're going to walk by yourself. And this kept going and kept going. Now, if you can remember back to your rehearsal, I'm not sure how long your rehearsal was. This rehearsal was 2 hours long. Okay? Just trying to convince the maid of honor to acquiesce, and she wouldn't. Now, we sort of got her to agree, and then we went to the rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal dinner was held at a barbecue restaurant. Okay, it was a smoky environment. There was actually a real steel guitar band that was up there playing. It was one of those fancy barbecue restaurants. They actually had the paper towels on the table, like right in front of you. It was amazing. It was benches and tables. So you just have to sort of get the ambiance of this place. Well, we go in and we're having a good time, but at some point, the maid of honor took the sister off into a corner, and they started discussing this even further. And eventually we sort of figured out, hey, this is way more than just talking about a wedding. We were realizing this was a sister thing. There was all kinds of other energy that was going on. And this thing escalates and it escalates and it escalates to the point you could hear them over the steel guitar band. And then the sister, the maid of honor, she ended the argument with a pop on the eye right there. And everybody's crying. Everybody's just losing their minds. We all had to sort of rush up there. And the bride, unfortunately, even though it was a fabulous makeup job, she had a shiner right on her cheek. And that was one of my first weddings. So I'm thinking, man, why did I stay in that business? But I enjoy it. And one of the questions that I always sort of spend time talking with couples about is we talk about their vows. Now, how many of you can recite your vows? Right here on the spot, you can. No, okay, well, that's not one of the games. That is not one of the games. But I usually have this sort of choice that I give to the couples. And the choice is, are you going to recite your own vows, or am I going to give you vows that are just sort of repeat after me? And I give them a choice. I actually have like 29 versions of vows, and I let them sort of choose and all that. But sometimes there's this brave couple that says, we're going to write our own vows. And so this happened to me very early in my career. I'm 47 now. This was probably when I was like 23, 24. I had this couple tell me, it says, we're going to write our own vows. I'm like, okay. I said, we're going to keep them a secret. And I had never run into this before, and I thought, great, and no problem. There's no problem with that whatsoever. So we get to this wedding, and the wedding was over the top. If you've ever been to an over-the-top wedding, it's just amazing. It was the kind of wedding that would just tell stories. They had a bar made of ice. They had taken some of their favorite things and had frozen them into the bar. They had like a basketball and dance shoes. They were all frozen into it. They had this fountain that you could put in Jell-O shots, and you could watch this thing produce a frozen drink at the bottom. It was just they had these birds that were just trained, like peacocks walking around, just trained to walk around. There was bubble machines. It was just the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. But it comes time for the wedding. It was at a golf club. It was in the heart of Atlanta, very prestigious. 400 people were at this wedding. And everybody, it was all fancy. All the women were wearing hats. It was just that kind of event. And the couple, it comes time for their vows. And again, I had sort of agreed. They're going to write and they're going to say their own vows. And so when it came time for the vows, I kind of stepped back and I said, hey, it's time for you guys to say your vows. And they reach back and they pull out these scrolls, like parchment paper, and they start unrolling them. I keep thinking, this is epic. I mean, this is just absolutely amazing. And so the bride, she read her vows, and they were beautiful. I mean, the sun, moon, and stars, it was just everything that you would want to hear, everything that you would want to hear said, or everything that you'd want to say. If it was your daughter or your granddaughter, it's everything that you would want to hear from the mouth of the bride. And then he read his vows. He unrolls the scroll, and he reads confidently, "You are hot, and you are cool." And that was it. And he rolled it up. And she was hot. She was a beautiful girl. But her face turned hot. Like red. And I could see Mom on the front row. And I could see Grandma. And they were doing that sort of clutching of their heart and all of that. And she said things to him after that wedding. And one of the things that's you walk out, and the bride and groom, she gets your bouquet, and they walk out. And you sort of have these few minutes while you send everybody else to the cocktail hour. So you have this few minutes before they go do pictures. And that bride said things you never want to hear. And she didn't care it was in front of the minister. She did not care. She said things that just, on wedding day. But one of the things that's always sort of exciting for me is to be able to spend time talking to couples. And one of the keys that I have sort of realized over time is that there is something important about this activity that you are doing right now. The idea of a date night. And in each of your bags, you should have gotten a little book. This is one of the books that we found for tonight. 52 uncommon dates. And so we're hoping that this is not a once in the year kind of thing. Hopefully you're doing this on a regular basis. This just happened to fall into your busy schedule of dates that you've already planned. Okay? But one of the things that I've realized over the years is this. Is that there's a lot of research that's been done. There's a lot of papers that have been written. There are a lot of grants and a lot of journals and a lot of books and a lot of all kinds of things that have been come out to say they've come up with this amazing idea. And I always sort of shudder when I think about how much money and time it took to come into this revolutionary idea. And this is what it is, and this is the result of all of this research. All of these people like me who spend time with couples and therapists and all this, and they've come up with this amazing idea. Couples that date stay together. I know, your head's exploding like mine did too when I heard that. Couples that date stay together. Couples that date stay together. And whenever I show this to the engaged couple, they have that sort of same look that you have right now. Like, yeah, that makes complete and total sense. But one of the other things that the research tells us is that there is a process that each of you started, but at some point it changes. Now, when you first started going out, we call it dating. There's three phases of a relationship. There's dating, there's engagement, and then there's marriage. And that process of dating, there was stuff that you did together that we would call dating. There was a process where he asks the girl out, the girl says yes. Hopefully, if she doesn't say yes, you keep bugging her. You got to keep after it. But at some point, you were on a date. And one of the things that I love to ask couples is, hey, where was your first date? Where was your first date? And if they can't tell me where their first date was, then the meeting goes in a different direction. Like, you gotta remember this stuff. But the research is pretty clear. The research shows us this, that once you start dating, there's a point where you get to a level of commitment. For some folks, they'll move in together. Some folks, it's engagement. For all folks, eventually, there's this process called marriage. And once you get to that point, what the research shows us is that this activity that you were doing on a regular basis begins to fade. And it's not intentional. It's not something that we do on purpose. It is just something that sort of happens. And one of the easiest sort of excuses or reasons why we don't do it, really it's time. We're busy. We have stuff going on. It's hard to stay on that sort of high level of romance and sort of maintain that when you have jobs, when you have kids, when you have all that stuff. There's also sort of a reality that once you are on date, once you sort of gotten to this point where you're married or you're living in the same place together, Well, I see you all the time. You're always there. Like, I go to bed, and there you are. And I wake up, and there you are. And I could go into the bathroom, and we could still speak. And that's okay. You are sitting next to the person right now. You are sitting next to the person that you can speak to that person while they're using the restroom. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you speak to anyone else while they're using the restroom, that's bad. That is a weird thing. But you have found the one person that it's okay to do that with. And so the reality is, though, is that you're not on an endless date. Okay? You're not on an endless date. You are not going into the kitchen or the living room saying, "Oh my gosh, I was just watching you put those dishes away. My heart I just lost my breath. It was just amazing how the Dawn dishwashing detergent just sprinkles in your eye. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing." And so once we realize that, yes, there is this sort of process that you have to keep doing. And it may be something you have to just start doing it again. And if you haven't done this for a while, now you do have an excuse right now. It's called COVID, okay? And if you have not been regularly dating in the year 2020, you get a little bit of a pass. You know, I get it. It's hard to have a romantic adventure in the kitchen, and the next week you're going to have a romantic adventure in the living room. It's like, oh, we're going to go to all these new different places. No, I get all that. I get that. But now that we're hopefully coming out of that, I'm pretty convinced there's going to be a cure that shows up the day after election, no matter who wins. So, but once all of this sort of phases out and you get back to normal life, I have four rules for you that I want you to consider. You don't have to write these down. Actually, we have your email addresses, so at some point tomorrow, I'm going to email this out to you so you'll have it in case you don't remember it as you leave. But there's 4 rules, and the first one is very obvious. The first one is you need to go on a date once a week. That is number 1. You need to date once a week. Not once every 2 weeks, not once a month. You need to go on a date once a week. Now again, however you categorize date, that may be up to you, okay? But what the research tells us is that there is a certain amount of time, there's a certain amount of tension that we can sort of put up with, okay? If I don't talk to you for a day, if I don't talk to you for 2 days, if I don't talk to you for 3 days, there's a certain point where our mind starts to race and we start to get anxious and all of that. And you sort of know what those things are for each other. And the reality is I did not get together with you. Every time I talk with these couples about their vows, I never once hear one of them say anything about a budget, anything about lawn care, anything about child care, anything about going on a weekend with the guys. There's nothing, no one ever says that in their vows. And that's really, you got together when you got to a place where I said I like you, you said you like me. We've sort of established that I want to spend time with you. And when you first started thinking about that, think about the last month. You weren't thinking about that stuff. That was not the stuff you were thinking about. You were thinking about spending time together. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 1 is you need to go on a date once a week. Rule number 2, and this is going to vary depending on your situation. Rule number 2 is no blank. Now, I'm not using foul language. What I'm saying, no blank talk is whatever you fill in the blank is sort of up to you. Now, for engaged couples, for those who are getting ready to get married, my rule to them is very simple. You have to go out once a week, and you cannot talk about the wedding. Period. No wedding talk. And mostly that's for the guy. The guy's like, oh my gosh, it's been a whole new world being introduced to him. And if you've been married, listen, if you've been married for more than 10 years, just thank God that you are not in it now. There are apps, there are things you have no idea how it has grown. If you've not been to a wedding in a while, it is a monstrosity that just keeps growing year after year. I love it. I'll eat bacon wrapped anything every weekend. It's no problem to me. But just to sort of see what the priorities are now. And so, just in the machine that begins, the moment the engagement starts, once the question is popped, there's all kinds of things that just start happening. But for that couple, I say this: you cannot talk about the wedding. You have to have one night a week. You could do 6 days to talk about the wedding, but you have to have one night where you don't. No apps, no notebooks, no to-do lists, anything like that. Now, for those of you who are married, you have to fill in that blank. And you have to decide what that blank is. So if it is no kids talk, that's your rule. And you have to be religious about the rule. You have to be very, very focused on it. If you need to bring a whistle, if you need to bring a flag, if you need to call penalty, whatever you need to do, throw the hat down, whatever that is. If it is no work talk, if it is no money talk, whatever it is that goes in that blank for you. And you guys have to decide that. And that may be the topic of your first date night, is to simply say, what is it we keep talking about? Or you could go at it from a more devious level. You could sort of say, what is it that we always argue about? What is it that we always sort of end up in some kind of conflict situation? And that can be your agreement. Hey, when we go out, this thing is not coming up. Parents-in-law, whatever it is, whatever. I am married to a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so tomorrow is going to be an interesting day. Just the whole conflict of Browns versus Steelers and all that. Whatever it is, though, that just drives you crazy or causes problems, that's the one thing that you cannot talk about. Now, 3, this is where it gets a little fun. Number 3 is you are going to alternate who plans date night. You're going to alternate who plans date night. This is also for the guy, okay? This is also for the guy. I've realized this a long time ago. Guys, you can all agree with this if you want. Guys only have 3 good dates. And you've spent them by now. And we spend the rest of our lives kind of recycling those dates over and over again. And it worked. It worked when I got you to go out with me the first time. And now, like 10 years later, I'm realizing that's not working anymore. And so what happens after a while, once we've sort of spent the 3 days, guys come up with this amazing phrase. This is an amazing phrase, and I don't know where we actually pass it out. I think it might be right before the wedding. There's a secret meeting where we pass out this secret phrase. And this is how the phrase goes, okay? I'll do whatever you want to do. I'll do whatever you want to do. And we're smiling like, yeah, I don't have to think of anything. We're going to have a great time, and I don't have to think about anything. And the girl's just sitting there going, he didn't think about anything. So that phrase, it's not going to work. So I would say this. One of you, the guy, he is on first. He is up first. And then the very next week, the girl is going to be up. And I've seen some couples take this and have a lot of fun with it. I've seen some couples get competitive with it. That's up to you, okay? You could put all kinds of bounds on this that you want. You could say, hey, you could do whatever you want. It has to be fun. Now, don't go like revenge dating. Don't take her skydiving or something weird, okay? Let's go to the mechanical bull in the bar. That'll be awesome. No, you have to make sure this is something that I would like to do, but I would like you to do with me. It's sort of I guess the idea, the secret is that you are continually thinking about this. Because I want you to do this. Really what it comes down to is you are thinking about dating. You're thinking about this for 2 weeks. You're trying to come up with something. Every 2 weeks you're trying to come up with an idea. And my other rules, sort of sub-rules are this. No matter what happens, if date night is Friday night, it is Friday night. And I will guarantee you there will be an argument that takes place around 3:30 on Friday. And it does not matter if you have an argument, you still have to go out. And if you're still sitting at Chili's and you're eating the chips and sauce and you're like, just keep eating them. Just keep going. The mood will change, okay? But you cannot, under any circumstance, cancel the date. Now, the fourth rule is very simple. And I want you to do this for a reason, because you probably haven't done this for a while, okay? The fourth rule is what I call the magic question. The magic question. And this worked for you once. At least it had to. Okay? The magic question is this. Will you go out with me? Will you go out with me? Now I'm looking, all these ladies are smiling because she knows. This question is amazing. This question is amazing. And here's the reality. You may not have asked this question in a very long time. But this question is at the heart of every romantic movie, every romantic comedy, every romantic story, every book. When we watch those, and guys, if you get wrapped into this where you have to watch these, okay, all we're interested in is how this question shows up. How exactly did these two find each other? How did they meet? And who eventually asked that question? Will you go out with me? Now, there's sort of a dark side to this. There's a word that we get to, and it's sort of a comfortable word. It's sort of a double-edged word. And it's hard to process it. And the word is assume. And I hope that you're at a place in your relationship where I assume if you're going out, I'm going with you. That's an assumption that I am making, okay? But the dark side of that word is, if I'm assuming, I'm also taking you for granted. If I'm assuming, that means that I don't really have to pursue you, that I don't have to tell you, hey, I still think about you in the same way that I did when I first met you. That I still think about you when we first started dating. That those are the same feelings that I have. And even though our life situation has changed, and we've added some kids, and we've added some houses, some cars, and all that different stuff, that I still think and feel those same ways about you. And that you are not ever going to take that for granted. So that means basically every week you have to have somebody ask that question. Somebody somewhere is going to ask that question. Will you go out with me? Now guys, listen, I'm going to ask the girls. Girls, just close your ears for a second, because this is a benefit to this. Guys, if you are ever in trouble, okay? If you're ever in trouble and she comes in the room and she says your full name, okay, and your middle name, if she puts all of that in one, and you know, maybe I don't even know. All you have to do is you have to stop her and say, hey, I want to know if you would go out with me. And she's going to stop. And she's going to be like, what happened? And she's going to see like stars and flashes, and she's going to forget whatever it was when she came in the room. And you're going to say, you just came in here so that I could ask you, would you go out with me? It works. It works every time. So that's free. That's worth the price of dinner. That one right there, just to get you out of jail. But the idea of the question is an incredibly important thing, because we love that question. Our hearts are tuned to that question. Our hearts are tuned to a number of different questions on individual bases. We still, even if we have been married for 50 years, there's still a thought of, am I good enough? Do they still think about me? Are we still in the same place? Our minds are tricky places. And that question could solve a whole lot of problems. It could solve a whole lot of issues. I would love for you to get into the habit of dating. A couple years ago, I had the privilege, I did a 60-year vow renewal. Okay, a 60-year vow renewal. And let me just tell you, my calendar does not have a bunch of those. Okay, I do not do very many of those. And it was beautiful. And there were 60 to 70 people that were in attendance. And it was all their family. It was all their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and everybody who had married into this family. And there was about 60 to 70 people who showed up for this event. And I asked them, I said, hey, tell me the secret. Tell me the secret to what you guys did each and every week. And their answer was very simple. They said, we go bowling. Like, what? No, give me a little bit more than that. What exactly are you talking about? No. This is what we do. We're in a bowling league. And they actually showed me this picture that was taken about 50 years ago. And they had matching little bowling shirts, and they had a little embroidered name on it and all that. And they said, we go bowling every single week. Like, man, your game must be that just must be monster. They said, no, we planned this out. And this started early on. Everyone knew that Saturday night was date night. Our neighbors knew that. Our friends, people that we went to church with. And eventually our kids knew that. And eventually our grandkids knew that. That every Saturday night we go bowling. They said there were plenty of times where the kids would come pull on their pant legs and say, don't, stay with us. Don't go out. And they said, nope. You guys get the babysitter. We are going bowling. And they did this for 60 years. And they went so far, what was interesting, they went so far as to put that into a budget. Now, I don't know how many of you have this in your budget. And if you don't, you probably should. They had a line item. Because eating steak 4 times a month, that's expensive. And paying for the babysitter, that's expensive. And buying new bowling shoes every year, because they're using them, that's expensive. They actually had date night in their budget. And they said something very profound to me. They said, we do not get to 60 years if we did not plan for it. 60 years is not an accident. 60 years does not just show up. How often do you hear the stories of couples that have tried it, and they've gone as far as they could, and it just doesn't work out, and all these life things happen, or it just didn't go the way that they intended. When they first started going out and they were looking at each other starry-eyed at the restaurant or at the movies or at the park or wherever they were doing on their first date night, the way you get from the first date night to 60 years is by planning. So your 4 rules are very simple. You need to go on a date once a week. No blank talk, whatever that is for you, whatever your hot spot is, whatever your pressure point is. I want you to alternate this. So girls, you're going to have to actually exercise the ask out muscle. You may not have ever had to do this. So you're going to have to try this. Actually, you're going to ask each other the question. You can do it however you want. If you want to do a sticky note, if you want to do lipstick on the mirror, that gets messy. But however you want to. However the youngins are doing it now, you can text each other, you can do whatever, however you want to do this. But then, your 4th rule is make sure you ask the question. Make sure you ask the question. And I hope we're going to get as far as you. You're our model tonight. Thank you. I'm not sure what you guys did, and I don't know if you go bowling every week, but yeah. So I hope that is encouraging for you. We thank you so much for being here. And we have some coffee, we have some cookies, all of that. We're going to dismiss. And oh, you got to. Right. So yeah, we're going to announce the results.
Come on, you want to announce them or mine?
Very good. Go ahead.
You want to do
it? You want me to do it? No, you do it. What is it,
dude?
The big prizes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go. You do it.
Yeah. What are we doing? All right. So when you came in, hopefully by now you've done it. If you haven't, too late. In the back are those gift. Yeah, the gift things. Those things. Those are awesome. And so you all put your names in them. I prayed about it for a long time. Actually, I didn't. My girlfriend did. And we've selected some names. So if you get your name called, here in a minute when we do the thing he said where we're going to dismiss, because we are going to dismiss you, by the way. Your kids are somewhere. I don't know where.
They're somewhere.
They're somewhere. Wait until after we dismiss. You guys can go onto the back and take the prize. They're labeled, or take all of them, whatever. So the first one that I'm going to announce is the at-home dinner. So I went shopping for you. There's some spaghetti in there. There's some stuff to make brownies. There's even a Giant Eagle gift card. You could get more stuff, whatever stuff you need, at Giant Eagle. And you can have a date night at home. That one is John Lee.
There.
John
They
Lee.
were the first ones here tonight,
So
too.
you get an at-home dinner. All right, the next one, movie night basket. Now, I have to explain this one for a second. So, I don't know if you've noticed, but going to movie theaters right now is a little weird.
Yeah.
It's a little bit weird. So, I got a little bit creative, and I decided I put an Apple, like iTunes gift card in there because did you know you can rent movies now through like Apple TV stuff? You can rent a movie through there. So that's what we've got instead of the movie night thing. Sorry, the movie theater is just weird right now. So that one is, oh boy. It's the last name. It's either an H or a K. We're going to go for it. Rachel Lasky? Yes? No? Yes? Did I get
There
it?
is.
Boom.
Very good.
Look at that. It was either an H or a K. I was like, it could go either way. That's all right. Uptown Joe basket. I gave out some gift cards earlier. Take each other to get coffee. Do that. That one is Jared. I'm going to say Hun. Did I do it? There you go. In the back.
Very good.
There you go. Starbucks basket. Lindsey Johnson.
Very good.
Starbucks basket. Hey, just so you know, these baskets are cool. Grinders/Amazon basket.
I don't know how those go together.
I don't know how those go together either.
No, just move on. Keep going.
I'm into that. Can I have it?
No.
I'm going to go for this. Tamara Hudson. Did I get it? Heck yeah. There you go.
Very
Amazon Starbucks basket. There we go. I'm going to do that one last. Game night basket. Game night basket. Anthony Warner.
Very good.
There you go. Hey.
Very good.
And then Variant Orchards was really nice. And they actually donated. This is why I'm doing this one last. They donated a stay at one of their cottages. So that one's pretty awesome. So Dave Wolf won that one.
Hey.
So there you go. Yep.
Very good.
Awesome. You guys can go on into the back and do that. David, we have some stuff kind of going on. It's kind of free time, right?
It is free time.
It's playtime.
You're dismissed. We'll dismiss with a word of prayer, but you're dismissed. Again, we have coffee, we have cookies. You don't have to leave. We're going to turn some music on. If
You can
wanna
dance.
You can do whatever you want.
It's a floor.
Yeah, if you want to go get your kids, you're welcome to. The next big thing for us is Trunk or Treat, which is on Halloween Day. The town is doing their trick or treating from 3 to 5. We're going to have our Trunk or Treat out here. We're going to be socially distanced. We'll be safe. We'll have all the cars spread out. Everybody's going to have masks and gloves as they distribute candy. We'd love to get a few more cars, though. If you'd like to bring your vehicle and be a part of Trunk or Treat, make sure you see me before you go. But there's a lot of stuff going on week in and week out here at the church. If you need anything, feel free to call us, contact us, anything like that. Again, have a wonderful night. Let's have a quick word of prayer as we leave. God, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for fun. We thank you for the food. We thank you for the fellowship. We thank you for the future as well. God, we pray for each relationship that is represented here. We thank you for the legacy. We thank you for all the good and all the bad that has gotten each couple to the place where they are right now. So God, we pray that you would protect them, that you would strengthen them, that you would continue to move them closer to you and closer to each other. God, we thank you for this gift of love and this opportunity in a season and in a world where it's very hard to show it in our culture, that we can be loving towards one another, but especially in our couples and in our families. God, we thank you for everything you've given to us. Keep us safe as we leave. And all this we pray in your name. Amen. Y'all have a wonderful night.